Hello and welcome to CNY Haunts on WSYR Plus. I'm Bob Driscoll. On this show, we're going to talk about anything spooky in Central New York, and what better way to start than to talk about the Baldwinsville Ghost Walk. It is coming up on October 10th, 11th, and 12th. Joining us today, Jim Dale, president of the Baldwinsville Center for the Arts. Jim, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you very much, Bob. I appreciate having me here.
It's a fun topic to talk about, right?
You know, it really is. Baldwinsville's got a long, kind of notorious past. There's a lot of legends and a lot of lore, and a lot of murder and mayhem that's gone on over the past 2 centuries.
So, Jim, why don't you tell us a little bit about your role in Baldwinsville, like what you do?
Well, I've been the president of the Baldwinsville Center for the Arts now for, I guess this is my 8th year. Yeah, it's a long time. We're basically we're a charitable organization. We try to support all the artists across a whole myriad of disciplines in Baldwinsville. So we do a few events that are we call them key. One is our art walk in the spring, in which we're seeking visual artists, potters, painters, that kind of thing. And we try to get them out in the street, and that's usually in June. And at the end of the year, now we try to bring out the actors, actors, writers. We've taken a lot of advantage of the local talent, and there's quite a bit of it out there to contribute.
This is by far my favorite time of the year. I love the haunted stories. I remember when I was a kid, my parents take me to Verona Beach where they told ghost stories and like the little pavilions and stuff going around. So Baldwinsville Ghost Walk. We'll dig into it in detail here over the next few minutes. But can you just kind of give a brief summary what it is?
Yeah, it's a walking tour downtown in the village of Baldwinsville. There are 8 stops. We hire actors to come out and basically portray their own demise stories. They've all been rooted in some basic local stories, and ultimately they're enjoyed by walking crowds of people that come by every 15 minutes. So they're vignettes. They last about 6 minutes long, and then you move on from stop to stop, and there's 8 in total.
Now, I was kind of looking just yesterday at some of the events going around in Central New York, coming up as we get close to Halloween. There's a lot of unique things. What makes this Ghost Walk different from traditional things people can get to in Central New York? What makes this stand out?
Well, a lot of ghost walks are very historical in nature. They're taking you through cemeteries, pointing out some of the general history. This, we try to dig into the creepy and the unexplained. Baldwinsville's known for a few things that are, let's say, unexplained. That's the best word to describe it. And so as the crowds come out and the tour groups, they're always surprised about the content. They are always thinking, okay, I'm going to come along this house and somebody's going to talk about the history of this building, or who used to live here. And we take a totally different turn, of course, and we bring out somebody who's been dead and usually killed there.
Yeah, it's people might be surprised by some of the ghost stories. I mean, I remember I used to live out in Saratoga County, and I was out there one time, and my house had it was in a house divided in apartments. It had like a historical sign out front. I was in a bookstore on hauntings of Saratoga County. My house had a whole chapter.
Oh, wow!
I refused to read it because I didn't want to know. So I still to this day don't know what it was. But yeah, so people might be surprised at some of the stuff in Baldwinsville. It has its own share of ghost stories. What are some of the stops? Can you get into some of them?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the stops are at historical houses, and we can talk about the stories themselves. But we try to follow a theme each year. So this year, there's always an unexpected evil that takes over the community at some point or another and influences the behavior of men and women alike, and occasionally children, which we've done in the past. And these stories, we root them in things that we find in the Baldwinsville Farmers Gazette. It's the historic newspaper there, and there's a lot of content in there about murder and mayhem over the centuries. So every time that somebody shows up, that's really what they're going to experience.
Are some of the places you're stopping at known places, or are they just random houses? What are some of the spots?
We try to set everything in the historic district. There are 2 streets in Baldwinsville that are part of the National Registry, and so Nida Street and Oswego Street. So we try to position the ghosts in front of those houses in which they would be most likely to have encountered those folks for real. Some of the residents. My wife's family is a longtime residents of Baldwinsville. They came back in 1816, so they're familiar with a lot of the stories and a lot of the houses where you don't want to really pass them at night, especially when it's the middle of October, and the wind's blowing and the leaves are rustling.
There was certainly, I grew up in the city of Oneida, and there was these couple of houses you just didn't want to walk by at night, right? Every community has those
Right.
those spooky areas.
Well, the old Victorians, they just lend themselves to that. We've got a few along the street that have really pretty tall, classic Victorians, and they're just creepy by nature. So they're a good place to stage these events.
We had a house in Oneida, too, that had the windows shaped like the Amityville horror windows, and I'm always like...
Right. Yeah, that's what you want.
And I lived across the street from a guy named Michael Myers, so it was
even better, right?
a bad combination, right?
Yeah.
When people approach these haunted sites, do they know they're approaching them, or is it kind of a surprise when suddenly they see one of the actors?
They know they're going to come out and see actors, but essentially they are always surprised. As they take the tour, they never know what the story is going to be from year to year, and we have a lot of repeat tourists, let's say, people that have been on the tour multiple times, and when they come out, they're looking forward to something new. Basically, they want to see what ghost is there and what they're going to say, and basically how they got killed, or who they killed.
Can you tell me any of the ghost stories now, or is that a
sure,
surprise?
Yeah, absolutely. So, this year, the theme is theme centers around the devil showing up in a lot of different places and influencing people or turning them into bigger monsters than they might be. And it's a funny story because we use writers every year to create these things. Last year we did an entire set of stories based on the Witch of Whiskey Hollow, and there's a lot of local history about the witch. Essentially, the local Onondagas, the Haudenosaunee, actually avoided this part of the county in Baldwinsville because they thought it was there were evil spirits there. And so, as the settlers came in, they adopted some of these things. And there's a section of Baldwinsville that was actually part of an old bootlegging camp. And over the years, every kid in town has managed to wander up into Whiskey Hollow in the middle of the night, usually to be up to no good. But when they come back late or they come back, not in the way they were supposed to, they blame it on the witch. So the witch is responsible for all their bad deeds. Last year, the witch influenced a woman to drown herself. We had another one who convinced all the local people that the epidemic of was their fault, and it goes on and on from there. We had a story last year which was really interesting, based on a true story. A deserter during the Civil War ran away from the Battle of Gettysburg, and he made his way. He was heading north, and one of the colonels, who was part of the regiment from Baldwinsville, literally chased him back. And ultimately, he got to Baldwinsville, where he was promptly shot by firing squad. So, you got that kind of thing going on in the middle of town. That's a lot of material to write for. So this year, the devil's going to show up in actually almost every story in some form or another. One of the stories which is really, really fascinating, it's about a drag car racer, a greaser from the 50s. And he has been challenging everybody in Baldwinsville to a race. Ultimately, there's a new kid in town who comes. That kid seems to have the best motorcycle going, and he really wants to beat him. And it turns out that the kid who's come to be challenged belongs to, he's a minion of the devil, and the devil has taken the form of a little girl. And in order to beat him, you actually have to run her over in the middle of the street. So the only way to win the race is to kill the kid. And so, unfortunately for that guy, he actually does, and then he becomes entrapped. He frees the next guy, and on he goes. So it's a little twisted, but that's
it's Halloween. You can get away with it, right?
You can get away with a lot of stuff. We have another story that's also fascinating. There's a big old mansion in Baldwinsville, Applecrest. It sits up on Brown Street, and it's just a giant mansion. And right now, it's been owned by a lot of people over the years. In the last, I'm going to say probably 6 or 7, it's been abandoned. It's just sitting up there. So kind of lends itself to more stories than you'd imagine. It has its own storied past, but right now we set a story about that in which a local kid in set in modern times, a babysitter, goes up to the door, finds an intimidating taller man who's there, and he has two little children. And because she's so dumb, she doesn't realize that he's a vampire king, and so
you got to be able to pick out vampire
yeah,
kings.
you got to be able
right?
to do it, right? You know, so he enlists her as the babysitter, and ultimately, in the course of babysitting for these little girls, and she becomes a victim to them, and ultimately ends up being a vampire herself. The story is really fascinating because we were able to land just absolutely charming little cherub girls, the Edelman sisters, Abby and Caitlin, and they're just natural little actors. When they came out for their audition, they just blew us away because they were just so good. So in these roles, they couldn't be any creepier if they tried. You know, they're always coming up to the babysitter, who's being played by Aubrey Layton. She's another local girl, but they're always smelling her, turning over her wrist, eyeballing her neck, and kind of basically pawing over her, though she's unaware that she's already been victimized by them because she's fallen asleep on the job one too many times. So.
Out of my my own curiosity, you mentioned Whiskey Hollow. That's not related to Whiskey Hollow Road, is it?
It is, exactly.
It is.
Yeah. Have you been up that way?
Last year, my friends Dave and Melissa were coming to visit, and they're like, "Yeah, we heard this ghost story about Whiskey Hollow Road." So we drove down that road one night, and it was a little creepy.
It is
I'll
creepy.
admit.
1,000 eyes in the woods, and a lot of caves up in that area. It's just a dark and deserted road at the end of the day, but it goes up a very long hill in Baldwinsville, and at the end of it, there's some farmland, but at the base of it, you're just basically climbing through the darkest section of pine forest you could get through, and ultimately you hit a section where it opens up a little bit, but you really don't want to get out of your car and walk around. But like I said, the local kids have always used it as a hangout spot for the middle of the night. Back in the day, people avoided it just because it just had that kind of reputation.
We got to the end of it, and then my GPS told me to make a U-turn and go back down.
Back,
I'm like,
right?
nope,
That's the only way.
I refused.
You're best to go through and keep on moving.
Yeah,
right?
I took a right and just hope for the best. I'm like, no, we survived the road. We're going to keep moving on. So the tour, it's evolved. This is what, the 6th year, right?
This is our 6th annual. We would have had 8, except the pandemic knocked off 2 of them in between. But yeah, it's our 6th annual, and we're really proud of this event. It brings out a ton of people. Last year we had about 1,200 people a night out for the event. Brings a lot of people into Baldwinsville. It's great for the business community. Sinks a lot of money into the local economy, and it's a fun kind of thing. Baldwinsville does a few things that are just fun anyway. There's an event out at Beaver Lake Nature Center. They do a night pumpkin ride through their trails. We also have an event that goes on during the day for the kids. They come out and paint the windows. But the Ghost Walk kind of wraps it up because it's an opportunity for the adults to come out and play.
Now, the narrators, the actors in the Baldwinsville Ghost Walk, do they have any kind of a connection to these ghost stories? Or are they just, do you put out a casting call?
Yeah, we do a casting call. So this year we had about 52 people come out. Last year, about the same. And what we try to do is just match we do cold reads. So this year I'm directing, so it was a cold read, and we just try to match the actor to the story that best fits them. So it's fun for them. And we try to hire as much local talent. In the past years, we've had students come down from SU. We've had different writers write the stories. This year, Jeremiah Thompson, who's a professor up at SU, wrote these. He was an actor in last year's Ghost Walk, and he just found a niche. And he's got a good knack of creating a theme and tying all the stories together around it.
I'm going to put you on the spot here. What would you consider to be the scariest place in Baldwinsville?
Scariest place in Baldwinsville? Well, when people come to my house and they ask me about the ghosts, I always say they live next door. There's one of my neighbors has claimed that he's been locked in the attic by unseen forces, and to this day, I won't go up there. Most of the houses in town that are older, we've got pre-Victorian houses in town. People have been bound to have died in them, and some of them are just looming over the village, and those are the ones that most of us avoid.
Now, you pick different spots every year, or is it the same?
We do.
age?
We try to spread it out. We find the best route for the tour and also the best locations. What we generally try to do is put all the actors underneath cover on somebody's porch, where they're not going to sit out in the rain. A lot of them got rained on last year, but they were at least. I should say a lot of the tours got rained on last year, but at least the actors were under cover.
What were some of over the years the most popular spots that you've picked to do these hauntings?
There's a house on Elizabeth Street. Used to belong to Stephen Baldwin. He was the son of Jonas Baldwin, the original settler of Baldwinsville, the town is named after. And he's got a beautiful brick house on Elizabeth Street. It's got a fountain in front of it, and it's got a circular driveway, so it allows the tourists to come up and then be captured in front of that massive porch that he's got there. So, you kind of, once you're around the circle, you're trapped. And so the ghosts can come down off the porch and play into that whole circle that's there. And this year we've got a bunch of kids who we cast in a story called Never Grow Old. And essentially it's a story about a little girl who's constantly playing with her brother, except the brother's been dead for a very, very long time. And until her dad comes out and says, "What are you doing?" The audience is not aware that one of the characters is really dead, because the girl that's playing, she's actually pretending to be a ghost. So we have her under a white sheet this year. She's the pretend ghost, and the other kid is the real ghost.
Now, anything can happen on Halloween. Has your ghost walk ever turned into an impromptu ghost hunt where something spooky or unexplained happened?
No, I look forward to that, but no, that hasn't happened. But, a lot of locals, there's a long road. You've been on Whiskey Hollow Road, but there's also 60 Road. It's a road that actually runs from Baldwinsville basically out to Phoenix. It's a long road through abandoned land. It's just, there's nothing out there. And I'm going to say maybe 2 or 3 years ago, some of the attendees had said that they were traveling that road coming in from Phoenix, and in the middle of the road, there was just a random bonfire. And as they approached, they decided, this was not the place to be. They could see folks in the middle of the road dancing around this fire, and they just turned around and promptly went back to Phoenix and came down River Road instead, so they didn't have to make that trip. So, yeah, I don't know.
Probably a smart move.
Yeah, it was probably a smart move.
There's a road, I think it's in Syracuse, when I was looking up for future episodes of CNY Haunts here. I think it's called 13 Curves or something as a legend. There's something similar in Syracuse about... some ghosts that haunt after a car crash or something. I might have the details a little wrong. I got to look more into that.
No, that's that sounds right to me. Yeah, we've got those kind of locations where there's been some event where the ghosts are lingering, basically, and you're bound to see them if you're out there in the middle of the night.
So this is 6 years now. It would have been longer if not for COVID. What was the inspiration for it? Like, how did this start? Whose idea was it?
We had hired a very talented woman. Her name was Kelly Hamilton. She worked for us as our basically our production assistant. She put together these events for us initially. We were looking for a fundraiser that would tie into what was naturally going on in Baldwinsville anyway. We tried to compete at Christmas, but it's hard to beat Skinny Atlas in that Dickens Festival. It starts early and lasts long. So we figured we'd claim October, and the Center for the Arts really wanted to have something that we could hang on to in the long run. And October just lent itself. It's a great opportunity to hire actors. It's a great opportunity to hire writers, and it's a great opportunity for the folks in the community to see these properties and experience them up close with a little, spooky twist.
Maybe some of you can get in cahoots with Skinny Atlas and have like a zombie Scrooge or something.
That would be nice, actually. Yeah. Something that goes on, where we compete in that particular way. I'd like that. But we had been looking for a fundraising event that would be fun and be adult themed related. So we do recommend that if you're under 11, don't bring your kids, because the stories are pretty scary. We're shooting people, we're hanging people. People are becoming possessed. So
definitely an adult audience. And that's very good to know. That was gonna be one of my questions as a follow up. Is who is the target audience for this? So we make sure it's right.
We're a little hypocritical because we've hired and cast little kids as the actors, but the stories are really. Not little kid friendly at the end of the day.
And you said people come back every year. Is this something you notice is more local people that come to it just to support the
No, we're
community, or is
getting
it people from all over?
No, we're getting people from all over the county at this point. Because it's our 6th year, the word spreads. We do a pretty good job marketing this event, and I think there's just an energy and desire to be out in the county and experience these haunts. It's a fun time of year. We've tried to, and we're thinking that we'd actually hold one at the Riverview Cemetery maybe next year, so that the ghosts can pop out from the headstones instead of just from the houses. But
And this event's very popular, right? Does it usually sell out? Like, should people
It does.
act now and get tickets? And how do they do that?
Yeah, they can go on to our website, which is baldwinsvillearts.org, and they can buy their tickets there. Right now, we're about I think we're about 50% sold. So in the next 3 to 4 days, we'll go. And last year we sold out.
Over the years, have you or other people that have been associated with this event that maybe were a little skeptical? Now maybe you're a little more believing in the paranormal?
Well, it's funny. We've asked people if we could they tell us a ghost story about their house, and maybe we could include it. But generally, people don't like to do that. If they do have a ghost, they have a tendency to say, "No, not here. I don't want my house being associated with the creepy things that really go on here." There's a few houses up on Oneida Street in the historic district, and they were just a lot of people died in them. And so those homeowners who we've tried to enlist have said, "No, it's too close to home." If we bring people out in a tour, it's very possible that just may triggered the ghost to stick around a little longer. They don't like that.
We always had a thing when I was growing up. If something unexplained happened in our house, we'd just be like, the house. And
Yes.
then my brother and I tried to use that as an excuse to get out of trouble. If
Sure.
we
Was
didn't
the
take
house?
out the garbage, the house. They put it back
Right.
in.
Well, I
Tried to
think
blame
that
it.
is the popular cry of every teen who's ever gotten caught coming back from Whiskey Hollow in the middle of the night. It was the witch that we encountered. That's why I'm so late.
No, and that's very, very true. What should people know if they want to go to this event? Like, where do people meet up? What time frames? How
Yeah,
often does it go?
So the tour leaves every night from Baldwin Canal Square. It's actually the Central Park in Baldwinsville. Everybody knows the Beeville Diner. It's located right next to that. And we put up a tent there where the tours start. So every night the tours start at 6 p.m. They leave from the tent every 15 minutes. And then the last one leaves at 10 o'clock. So, you get 16 tours a night to choose from. A lot of people favor the ones that are way later, especially the younger folk want to be there way after dark. And then we do find that some of the older folks, they come out during the day, when it's still light out at 6 o'clock. It's just a little safer, I think,
You got to go in
to
the
have the
dark.
experience.
What about group sizes? How many people go in a group? And how long is the walk, if people are curious to
The
know?
walk is about an hour and 15 minutes. So we always say, be prepared, bring your inclement weather gear, wear your good walking shoes, because it is a long walk. And so it generally takes the 15 minutes to go from house to house. That's why they're separated out that way. There's also a 6-minute vignette that they're going to see and hear, so they're going to be in those positions. And if it's raining, and if it's snowing, we want them to be able to be comfortable there. So that's what's going on. In terms of being out there, we always recommend, there's a lot of parking downtown. People don't realize that there's a lot of village parking right near where we set up the Ghost Walk tent. So you can come down, park. A lot of locals just, of course, walk on over to the tent. And as long as you're there in time that you don't miss your tour time, because we're pretty strict about that. All the tours leave exactly when they're supposed to. You're pretty good to go. Most of those tours, we can have anywhere from 35 to 40 people on those tours. And the actors tell us, it's pretty funny. The creepier the story, the further the audience sits back from from what's going on. And we employ tour guides. Every year we get volunteers to come and walk the tour groups, and one of their biggest challenges is trying to push these folks up front so that they can experience it. But once you've experienced a creepy demon doll that might be possessed sitting on somebody's porch, you got a tendency to hang back just a little.
It's like the roller coaster. You got the people who want the front seat, and you got the people who want to, I'm going to sit back a little bit.
Well, and the actors do say, the creepier the story, the further they stand away. Last year we had a great little actress. Her name is Grace Edwards. She played a possessed doll, and she was sitting on a porch in a rocking chair, and she sat so still that, as people came up, they really didn't think she was alive. And then when she began her story in particular is so creepy, about another little girl who gets sick, and the doll brings her into her soul, basically, so that she can capture her and have her live with her forever and ever. And
Kids can be amazing actors, especially in creepy movies. I worked on a movie as a production assistant in Atlanta, and we had these twins, and it was a scary movie. They were so scary.
They really were.
Yeah.
Well, I had auditioned about 14 kids the year that we cast Grace. She came in, she sat down, she read cold, and everybody in the room went, "Yeah, that's a creepy kid." So,
Like the twins from The Shining, again,
you
creepy
got it.
kids.
The prettier they are, the smilier they are, the creepier they can be when they're playing something that's just totally evil and corrupt.
No, you mentioned you do the arts walk too. Are you looking to do more of these kind of like walks in the community to get people
We
out?
do. These are our big fundraisers. We actually sponsor a lot of things during the year. Last year, we actually were the sponsors of most of the concerts on Paper Mill Island. And during the course of the year, we try to anchor the seasons with the Art Walk and the Ghost Walk. They're our biggest fundraisers. Ghost Walk, by far, is our biggest moneymaker for the organization, and we pump that money right back into the productions. So we try to hit our sales goals for the Ghost Walk, and then we use that money to support local artists. Every artist that comes out, either a writer or an actor in this case, they all get paid. And so we pay them, even though the rest of us are all volunteers. But we try to do what we can do to make sure that those arts are appreciated. And we've got a great arts community in the county and in particular in Baldwinsville.
All right, Baldwinsville Ghost Walk, October 10th, 11th, 12th. Jim Dale from the Baldwinsville Center for the Arts, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you, Bob.
This was a fun conversation. I hope to have you back on
Well, we hope to see you out at the
CNY
Ghost
Haunts
Walk,
at some point. Maybe I'll scare you. I'll jump out and scare you.
Maybe. That's a possibility.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you, Bob.